The Shuffle Along experience was fascinating. I adored it. It was heartbreaking. It was a musical that I was supposed to replace Audrey McDonald, and they closed it right before I was supposed to step in. I had to learn tap dance from scratch. I was in like tap dance boot camp for like 8 hours a day. And I love that, it was amazing. I love being told what to do, you know? And it was interesting because then it was next to, when that closed, I had, released my band, I cleared all the space in the schedule. It's not very easy to fill that up again. And I was asked to audition for Nashville, the TV show. And so, for me, really an amazing learning experience of that was going from two completely opposite art forms within like 2 weeks. So there's a Broadway, which is push, push, out, right? Gotta go to the back of the hall. Everything's gotta telescope. TV is the opposite. You have to bring them to you. Like every twitch is like a semaphore flag, And so just from an artist point of view of skills, it was really fascinating. So, I take everything as it comes. It's like I wasn't meant to do that, but I was meant to get to that point. So I learned a lot, It's really cool. Maybe 2 more questions?
Well, first I just wanted to say I just loved your rendition of American Tune. And I loved the way that the lyrics were adapted to talk about slavery and everything. I thought that was really cool. And then I just wanted to ask about the Silk Road Ensemble. Are you still doing that? What's going on with that?
The American Tune thing was very cool, and Paul Simon changed those words, so I didn't change them. It's very important people know that was his thing, and also that it opens it up to everybody. That song, those changes, it's not just,
Right.
It's not a lot of people can trace their ancestry back to the Mayflower, to be honest, So I love that, everything about it. And then, the Silk Road Ensemble, we have a huge tour in November. It's our first tour it's the second tour of my artistic leadership, but the first program that I kind of helmed from the beginning. It's about the Transcontinental Railroad. It's called American Railroad. And it's taking the focus off of Promontory Pike, the Golden Spike, and all the businessmen who funded it, and they're all like, capitalism. And it's actually shifting the focus to Chinese, Irish, African American, Native people who were affected by whose lands were stolen, so that railroad, people don't understand that's what happened. The government just said, here you go, barons, build your railroad. It's like, so what we're doing is looking at all those cultures. So I've brought in indigenous voices to Silk Road for the first time. Porfe is the guest. She's a wonderful Tuscarora Taino singer from New York and North Carolina. And exploring all of that, the cultures and the histories. We're doing deep dives, going into having workshops in history, and all this stuff. So it's very exciting. So it's all going to be on the West Coast in November, and then it comes back over here next November. And then this tour goes, so we have to work everything together. So check it out, silkroad.org. It's Yo-Yo Ma started it 23 years ago, something, and I took over from him. As you do. Big shoes. It's like I always say. People say, "How are you gonna fill yo-yo shoes?" I'm like, "Well, I don't wear shoes, so just gonna start from there." So one more question, if there is one. Talking about the purchaser's option. You're talking about at the purchaser's option, yeah. Yeah, I hope it affects everybody who hears it. It affected me so much he's talking about a song that I wrote based on an advertisement. The thing for me in slavery, and the way we don't teach it correctly, right? We teach it as this like, oh, wasn't it a terrible thing, it's over. First of all, it's not over. Slavery is a condition that's been going on for millennia, but this particular form of chattel slavery in the Atlantic world has left such huge marks on all of our nation state, our psyche, and our culture. But also, it was something that went on for hundreds of years. And every day, there was quotidian aspects of slavery that people just dealt with, and people just were living next to without really thinking about it. Auction signs, advertisements for slave catching dogs, right? Capitalism capitalizes. It creates a system where you sell stuff around whatever your thing is, and we were selling slavery. And so looking at these, advertisements, thinking about like when you're in the newspaper, or you're looking at the newspaper, or either online or whatever, and you see a used car for sale, this is what these ads were. This is the thing that makes you realize, you want to talk about people and the anguish and the torture and all of that stuff, absolutely. But you also had people going, you know what, I'm not gonna make my rent this month. I guess Jimmy's gotta go. It was literally like that. I love him, I love my car, but I gotta sell it. And it's hard to realize, but that's what you have to do to own people, is that you have to dehumanize them to that extent. And it's not to say that there is all of this, a lot of stories, and not everybody's the same, and all this kind of stuff, but generally, when you have a system built around that, that's what happens. Transaction after transaction after transaction after transaction. So this particular ad was a woman who was for sale, and the line that got me was, she has with her a 9-month-old baby who was at the purchaser's option. And it just brings home that transaction. It's like, well, you take it with or without the baby. It's up to you. And that led straight to a line in Omar, because I've done a lot of this primary source research, looking at what is the language. Writing the auction scene in Omar was almost too easy, which was really scary, because you looked at so much of this stuff. But he was selling to people, and he was like, you can take them together or take them one by one, doesn't matter to me. You just need to sell them. And it's important to, I don't go to see movies about slavery. I don't need to see the torture. I don't need to see the lip marks. We've seen that. And it desensitizes us to what was actually happening in the everyday around that stuff. These are the marks that last generations as well. It's not just the scars. It's the psychological scars that leaves it on the people who were sold and the people who were selling them. And we have not even begun to grapple with that. This is a really long answer to your question, but I wrote that song as a response to try to figure out what to do with all that, exactly what you're saying, that emotion, the effects of that. And then it allows us to have this conversation. So, sorry to leave you on a down note, but that's my job. The show will leave you on the up note. So you see these guys, they're awesome. So thank you all so much for coming out.